Hello, everyone. All five of you. Welcome to Ito's 2020 manga review thing. This is going to cover both manga that I just started reading this year, as well as manga that I was reading before the start of the year, but continued reading into this year. It's not only going to be manga that came out this year, though. It's just anything that I found this year. And I just have a list, and I'm going to go in alphabetical order. Starting off with Berserk, which I think everyone knows. You've at least heard of it, I assume. But for those that haven't, basically Berserk is about an edgy man named Guts who goes around with an oversized sword and kills monsters. And from this point on, I guess spoiler warning, because I will be mentioning specific things about the manga, though I'll probably try to be just vague enough that maybe you won't know what I'm talking about unless you've gotten that far. Anyway, so Berserk is pretty good, I gotta say. I wasn't expecting it to be very good, even though it's like, I think it's like the top rated manga on my anime list, but I don't know. I never really knew much about it, except that it seems really edgy, which it is. Don't get me wrong. It's very edgy indeed. And that apparently, like, a lot of hiatuses or something, but, you know. I'm reading Hunter x Hunter. I'm caught up on that. I know how that is. Hunter x Hunter is not on the list, by the way, because there hasn't been a chapter this year, or if there has been, it hasn't been released in English officially. Pretty sure the last one that got released was like November of last year. Anyway, Berserk. So yeah, but no, it's pretty good. They do a really good job. I mean, I think we all know what happens with Griffith, you know, that whole shebang. If you don't, you probably don't give a shit about Berserk anyway. They did a really good job building up to that, I thought. Griffith and Guts are both really interesting characters and have a cool dynamic going. And I think one thing that kind of gets masked by the edginess of Berserk is that the author does, I think, a legitimately good job of like showing us Guts's path through life, I guess, and why he is the way he is, and why he's this edgy man with an oversized sword who goes around swinging, which, you know, I don't know when Berserk came out. I guess I could look it up. I have my phone next to me. I'll look that up while I keep talking. Anyway, but I kind of get the feeling, or I assume at least, I've kind of always assumed this, I could be totally wrong, that Berserk was like the manga that like popularized the oversized sword trope. Mirrored as a prototype in 1989. Okay. Sounds about right. Anyway. I've always assumed that Berserk popularized that whole trope of big sword. It's never directly stated that like, oh, this is the reason. There's never like a reason given for why he does it, but there is kind of like an implied reason. At least I felt like it was kind of implied, because Guts is like a child soldier basically, and I feel like I remember him using like an actual like normal size sword. Like I don't think he's using like a kid sized sword. I think he's just using a regular long sword as a kid. Um, and I don't know if that was supposed to be like the, oh, this is why he uses an oversized sword type thing, but that's what I got, was that like, oh, he's so used to using big swords that he just kept using swords that were way too big for him, and then now he's just such a, you know, beast of a man that he has Dragon Slayer, which is, you know, the huge fucking slab of iron that everyone is familiar with, I assume, that's seen anything of Berserk. My only complaint is that there is a lot of I don't know if I actually want to. Should I give like a trigger warning for Berserk? I'm gonna give a trigger warning for Berserk, in case you were considering reading it. Basically, every other character either gets sexually assaulted and or just full on raped, or at least comes close to it. And that's probably my biggest issue with Berserk. It feels like the author almost kind of uses it as a crutch to fall back on for like shock value. And like, I get it, that's a really bad thing to happen. And like, you know, if it was a few characters, I'd let it slide because like, I don't know. I guess it's not that surprising considering I already expected Berserk to be super edgy and shit. But it is so, there's so many characters, and there's some characters many times on many occasions. Yeah, I don't know. It happens a lot. It just starts to like feel like the author's relying on it too much, I guess. Like I get why Guts is like heavily affected by it, but I don't know. It comes up too much, I think. I feel like there are other ways to, I don't know, have bad things happen. Whatever. But overall, good. The fights have been pretty good. They're usually not super long, which I think is a good thing, because I feel like a lot of anime will really drag out the fights. But I feel like usually it's not too bad. And if it does go on for a minute, it's because like new elements are getting dropped in constantly. It's not like they just hit each other back and forth for like 10 chapters. And when it is, there's usually, if there's not mechanical stuff getting added throughout the course of this fight, there's like emotional stuff getting added where like the stakes get higher and higher. I don't know. It's pretty good. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I would recommend it if my mention of sexual assault and stuff doesn't put you off, if you're fine with that. But there's a lot of it. So if you can't handle that kind of thing, definitely don't read Berserk. But if you can, and especially if you're an edgelord, you'll probably like Berserk. Although you'll probably like it for like all the lamest reasons, and not for the fact that it's just a good story with interesting characters. Anyway, next on my list is Black Clover. This one is sort of divisive, I guess. I feel like, well, divisive as in like, I feel like most people I talk to, they're like, oh, I didn't like the anime because the main character screams too much. But I don't know. I mean, this is a manga review, so if you're watching this, you, I don't know, I guess I assume you read manga more, but then maybe this is also an ASMR video, so maybe you're just watching it because it's long. And you like my voice. Oh. Yeah, I've been reading Black Clover. Well, I started watching the anime and then I swapped to the manga probably like 30 something episodes in. And I definitely like the manga a lot more. I think it does it a lot better. It's also a lot faster paced. The anime is actually pretty slow paced and there's a lot of filler. I think the second episode was like entirely filler, which is not good, at least if you ask me. But yeah, it's pretty good. This year has been a fun ride, I think. The current arc is pretty enjoyable. My favorite character, Yami, has had a lot of spotlight, although he's kind of like MIA, sort of. If you're reading, you know what I mean. So that's a little sad, but I assume he's going to come up later. But also we're getting delving more into like Asta's demon and the stuff behind that, which is interesting, as well as seeing other people who have demons. I don't know, it's been cool, fun. I mean, one of my favorite things about Black Clover is if you've heard me talk about Black Clover, I probably mentioned this. It's a really fast read. Like when I open up a chapter, the newest chapter of Black Clover, it just flies by. Like every time I read a chapter, it's just woof. And I think that is, at least in my opinion, that's a good thing. That I get immediately sucked in and I'm just like, whoo, and I'm at the other end and it's like a minute later. I'm sure some people would. There are definitely going to be some people who prefer super word heavy stuff where you really have to, take your time going through it. But personally, while I do like that stuff on the side, usually my favorite stuff is going to be things where I can like really like zoom through it, really like take it in without having to like stop constantly and read super fucking tiny text speech bubbles. But I don't have much to say about Black Clover. I've been enjoying it this year. If you like typical shonen stories, you'll probably like it. I give it a 7 out of 10 overall, and I'd probably give just this year's run of it a 7 out of 10 too. Moving on to My Hero Academia, or Boku no Hero Academia, whichever you prefer. I technically didn't start it this year because I've been watching the anime since it came out, but I switched over to the manga this year because I watched the first 2 seasons. It was the first 3, I think. And then I didn't watch anything past that, and then this year I picked up the I just remembered one that I didn't add to the list I need to go back to do after this. Anyway, and then I picked up the manga this year and I started where I had left off in the anime, and then I just blasted through. Really good, I would say. I would say it is definitely I wouldn't say it's my second favorite thing running in Shonen Jump, but I would say if I were to try to judge everything objectively, I would say that I think objectively My Hero is probably the second best thing running in Jump, right after One Piece. At least in terms of like action sort of things. It's been pretty good. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the characters' names, which suck. My favorite arc is the one with the guy who's like famous on the internet. I don't really remember his name. You know who I'm talking about if you've read it. That was my favorite thing. Also, I don't know if anyone else gets this feeling. If anyone listening also is caught up on the manga, it feels like it's coming up to an end, which is weird because all the stuff that's happening, it's like I don't really know where it's going to go from here if this thing actually gets wrapped up. Which I assume something's going to happen. It's probably not going to get wrapped up. But if this is the end, it's going to be weird because it kind of feels, at least to me, if this is the end of it, it feels a little like it just kind of like showed up out of nowhere. Granted, I got cut up like 2 months ago, so maybe that's why it feels like a little like, oh wait, it's ending. I don't know. Maybe it's not the end. I don't know. I'm not gonna find out for a few months because I'm assuming this arc is still gonna have at least like 5 to 10 chapters. So we'll be into February at least before we see if this is the end. But I would give My Hero probably an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Really good. Recommend it. If you like shonen action, you will like this. I can assure you. Good characters. Good fights. I don't know. I guess that's all I really got to say on that. I feel like everyone already knows about My Hero anyway, so I don't feel like I have to say much. Alright, next one. I skipped this one because I forgot to add it to the list. I just remembered it. Beastars, which I think that came out this year, right? The anime came out this year. I watched the first season of the anime because my friend Joaquin was like, hey, you should watch this anime. So we like sat down and watched the first like 2 or 3 episodes together. And then I went and I started reading the manga and I got caught up on the manga because I didn't really have anything else to binge at the time. And that actually ended this year, like 2 months ago. The manga did at least. I would give it probably a 7 out of 10. My favorite part was probably when Lugosi found out who the killer was and dealt with that whole thing. I'm not really going to say anything else about that because spoilers, I guess. Although the fact that there's a killer isn't spoilers because I feel like that happened in like the first episode, I think. Anyway. It was good. The world was kind of interesting, but there were certain aspects where it was like there was a lot of stuff that felt like it got set up to get explained more later, and then it ended. I assume that Beastars probably started dipping. It either started dipping in popularity or the mangaka, she started not really wanting to write more. I'm not sure which. There was a lot of stuff that got set up world building wise that seemed like it was going to be really important, and then it just never got explained. But I thought Lugosi was fun. I thought his whole thing with Haru, I'm terrible at names, the bunny girl, was interesting, and his whole thing with Lewis was fun. Their whole thing, they're gay. They're just gay. That's all there is to it, as far as I'm concerned. But no, it was good. I felt like the last arc was pretty lackluster. I don't know if that was a common thought, but overall, pretty good. 7 out of 10, I think I would give it. If you like romance manga, but done in a really weird way, then I guess you'll like it. I don't know. It's romance, it's action. It's got like political stuff too. I don't know really how to describe it really. It's a weird one. It's weird. It was an interesting read. I'll give it that. I don't know. Check it out, I guess. Okay, so next up we have one that got canceled this year. Bone Collection, which was basically, I kind of described it when I first read the first chapter as like Bleach, but like a kind of a comedy. So the premise is basically that there are yokai hunters, and you know, they kill yokai. You don't know what yokai are. They're basically evil spirits, or quote unquote evil spirits. But the main character sucks, but he can do a thing called the yokai spell, I think it was called, at least in the English translation, which basically lets him touch a yokai and like get a power from the yokai. And then he meets a yokai that's like super powerful. I think like if they had a ranking system, I think she was like triple S. Basically, she wants to become human, so she's in the human world, and he, you know, uses the yokai spell on her to do really powerful stuff. And yeah, anyway, it only got I might pull it up. I think it got about 20 something chapters. It was, I thought it was fine. Like, it wasn't amazing. It was a little sad to see it end. I feel like it's so hard to get like a manga going for like a long time. Like, they want to keep these, there's like a lot of mangaka, I feel like it's kind of a known thing that like when you, if you're a popular mangaka and you want to end your series, like they don't want to let you end your series because they want to keep milking you for as long as possible. I don't know when the fuck One Piece is gonna end, but I don't know. I'll be surprised if they end it without doing some sort of spin-off. Anyway, but it just seems like so fucking hard for these people to come in with their new series. You have to have, it really feels like you have to have a big hit to get anything past like a massive, well, I guess not like a massive success. Like, you don't have to be like the next One Piece or Naruto or Bleach to get a fair amount of chapters, but you have to do pretty fucking well to get past like 50 chapters. Like, you really got to hit it off. Make that money for your Jump or whoever it is in charge of your manga. I don't know. I felt like it could have gone and done some really cool things. And I feel like all these manga that get canceled, they always seem to get canceled like right when I'm like, you know what? They're starting to do some really cool things now. And then bam, it's over. Like, we were in the middle of an arc where we met one of the power, like, you know, we had the main girl who's like a really powerful yokai. We had another really powerful yokai show up. We also met another character who could use the yokai spell that was teaching the main character how to get better at it. Blah blah blah. And of course, it got canceled. And it felt like, you know, the typical thing of like, hey, you've got like 5 chapters to wrap up your manga. And it felt like they definitely got told this like after they had already like made it a few chapters into this arc against, you know, into the battle against this dude. Like I said, it wasn't amazing or anything. I don't even know if I'd call it great, but it was enjoyable. I thought, and I it was good enough that I feel like there were at least a good number of people out there who, like, if that had gotten the chance to like really go on for a long time and really like grow, it probably could have become a fair amount of people's favorite manga. I don't know. I have a big, and I don't think I'm the only one. Uh, I got a big beef with the way mangas run, where they want everything to run, everything that's popular to run for as long as possible, even when the mangaka doesn't want to do it anymore. But they don't want to give these up and comers a chance to like really make something. I don't know. Anyway, Bone Collection, probably about a 6 out of 10, which I feel like is normally not good, but you know, it's above average. So I mean, if you want like something short, you could read through the entirety of it in a day. Go read it. Just remember, you know, since it got canceled, the ending's super rushed, but I thought it was pretty enjoyable. Moving on to Burn the Witch. Burn the Witch is by Tite Kubo, who created Bleach. It was 4 chapters, I think, plus like a chapter 0. I don't know. See, I kind of have mixed feelings about this because I feel like I don't know, because it wasn't bad. In fact, I would say it was pretty good. But because it was only like 4 chapters, like, so the thing with this is that it was intended to be a short series run, which it was. It was like 4 chapters. It was always intended to be like a really short thing. Tite Kubo didn't want to do like a full series. But I don't know. It was weird because like it felt like where it ended, and if you've read it, which I would recommend reading it personally, I thought it was fun. The art's really good. I like the characters. It's nothing like groundbreaking, but it was enjoyable. But anyway, where it ended off, it felt like it honestly, it kind of felt like it felt like it ended at the end of the setup that a normal manga would have. So it was like where it ended was like in a normal manga would be the point where it's like, okay, everything's established, now we can really delve into the world. Which was really weird because it felt abrupt, and it almost felt like maybe it was intended to go for a little longer, but like no one was reading it. So Tite Kubo only did like the 4 chapters, and you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna stop here because no one's reading this, or something like that. I don't know. I don't know for sure what happened. I'm sure there's people out there that have talked about it. I haven't really done any research. I just read it. But my point is that I don't know what my point is, to be honest. It was good. I read Bleach last year, and because I read Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece because I wanted to read the big Shonen Jump 3, and I thought Naruto was trash. Bleach was pretty good. I gave it was like a 6 out of 10. It would have been a 7 out of 10, but I really didn't like that last arc much. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it was pretty like not great. And then I read One Piece, and One Piece is a fucking masterpiece, and it's the greatest thing ever made. I don't know. I don't really have much to say about Burn the Witch. I don't really want to say much about it because it's so short. I feel like if you have any interest in all, like, read it. But also at the same time, I'd almost argue there's not really any it's not really spoilers, because I guess nothing kind of, I think my only issue with it is that nothing major happens, because it feels like it's constantly just setting up stuff that isn't going to pay off, because I assume that that's it, unless Tite Kubo comes out next year. He's like, oh, just kidding, I'm actually making this a full series. But as far as I'm aware, that's it. Like that was it. I don't know. Like maybe he just wanted to like sit down and make like the beginning of like a manga, but he didn't actually want to write it to the end. I don't know what it was exactly. I mean, like, you know, he can do whatever he wants, but it was just odd. And I'm realizing how long this fucking video is gonna be, so I might, if the rest of the reviews are really short, that's probably why. So we're gonna move on. Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man did not come out this year. I'm like 99% sure. Yes. It might. I think it's about 2 years old actually. I'm not exactly sure when it. I don't remember when it came out. Should I have done research for this? No. Fuck you. Chainsaw Man's really fucking good. It's very weird. If you're okay with gore, then I recommend reading Chainsaw Man. It's very strange and surreal, but it is a fucking wild ride from beginning to end. The chapters that have come out this year have been no exception. It might be ending soon. It feels they definitely could end it soon, but I'm not sure. What we'll see. Recommend it. Fun. It's similar to Black Clover. It's one of those manga where like you pick it up and you're through a chapter in like a minute. At least for me. But no, recommend. It's good. Weird. If you like weird, surreal, horror action type stuff, then you'll definitely like Chainsaw Man. The mangaka's done other stuff, but I haven't read it, so I guess I can't recommend it. But I assume it's similar in style. Anyway, I'm gonna 8 out of 10, I guess. Probably, yeah. It's good. Recommend. Next up is Detective Conan. Detective Conan, I can't really recommend it, I guess, because it's long as shit. But I like it. I mean, I started watching the anime, the dub of the anime when I was like a little kid. I don't even know how old it was, but basically the dub came on. I think it was on Adult Swim, and I don't know. I just really liked it. And then when I was like 18, I started watching the dub again, and I got caught up with the dub because the dub only, I think it's like 100 something episodes. I don't actually remember for sure. But I watched all the way up to the dub because this was back when I still watched anime. And it's, what is it, like 1063 chapters now in the manga. Basically, I got caught up with the anime, and then I started watching I got caught up with the dub, and then I started watching the sub, and I got caught up with the sub, which the anime has almost as many episodes as the manga has chapters. So you can imagine that took me a long time. But I really like Detective Conan / AKA Case Closed. I don't know. I mean, I think it's good. not every chapter is amazing, and you know it's long as shit. So I don't know. Like there are some chapters where I'm like, I feel like we've done this before, just slightly different. But I don't know. I guess I don't have much to say. Like if I don't know. I feel like it's been going on for a long time. It's kind of like Berserk, where like you either are aware of it and interested, or you're not. And I don't know. I assume most people wouldn't want to catch up on it at this point. Good. I like it. Feels like it's gonna wrap up soon. This isn't even really a manga review. It's more just me like, here's things I've read, but I don't really know what else to title this, so it's probably still just going to be titled Manga Review of 2020 or whatever the fuck. Anyway, moving on. Dr. Stone. I feel like most people know about Dr. Stone. Basically, the world, everyone on Earth gets turned to stone, but then like, I don't even remember. I think it's like thousands of years later, but I could be wrong. The main character wakes up, and he's like a super genius scientist guy. And then he basically has the goal of like rebuilding the world from the Stone Age up. It's interesting. I don't know how accurate the science is. They have a science advisor, so I assume it's at least decently accurate. But regardless, it's fun watching Senku come up with just like weird, wacky inventions, and just the way he tries to incorporate Stone Age technology, or what is essentially Stone Age technology, and use it to create modern devices or devices similar to modern devices. I don't know, it's just interesting. It's fun. I kind of like it. The art's good. Characters are silly. I don't know. I don't have much to say, I guess, except the current arc's pretty interesting. They made tires, like rubber tires, like what you would have in a car. They had motorcycles, actually. Wacky shit. I don't know. If you like manga with a lot of gags in it, and not a lot of action. This one's one of those that's very like conversation heavy. Like it's more like not One Piece, Death Note, in its quote unquote, in a lot of its quote unquote action, and that typically there are bits where there's like fighting, but for the most part the real tension is like Senku outsmarting his opponents. I don't know. I guess you could say it's like a goofy Death Note in that regard. But I don't know. Check it out. It's kind of fun. I like it. Next up is Grand Blue. This one was recommended to me by Wayward Weishi, whatever the fuck he wants to go by. I don't even know. But it is essentially, well, it's technically a diving manga, but they don't really go diving a lot. It's a slice of life, really, about a guy who gets sent to. Does he get sent there, or is he just there for I mean, he's going to college there, but I don't remember if he was forced to go there or not. Basically, he's living with some relatives, who own a diving shop. He's living there while he goes to college. Um, a lot of wacky characters. Definitely like one of the funniest manga I've ever read, I would say. If not the funniest. All the characters are assholes, but I like that. I think that makes it more fun, personally. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much to say, I guess, aside from it's really funny. Uh, it's nice to read a slice of life that isn't about like 15-year-olds, I guess. Like, it's really hard for me to really sink my teeth into like some fucking teenage drama where the main focus is typically the fact that the main character has like 7 chicks that want to fuck him. Like, there is sort of a harem aspect and a romance aspect to Grand Blue, but well, I guess I can't say that it's not. It becomes more prevalent the further into the story you go, but I feel like by the time it starts to become a quote unquote major thing, like you're already kind of hooked on the characters and stuff. Um, if nothing else, the comedy's really good, and the art is also really good. I recommend it. Don't know what else to say. Really fucking good manga. Good shit. Good call, Wayward. Next up is another one that got canceled. That started this year. Guardian of the Witch, which was basically so there are witches, and basically witches, magic. But the whole thing about witches in this world is that eventually they have like a thing. I think it was called like a seed of evil or some shit like that. Something really generic. Basically, the more they use their magic, the more it like corrupts them, and then eventually they just turn into like a monster. But they use these witches to help fight off monsters that live in the wild. I don't really know much about the lore of that because it didn't last very long. Um, I thought it was interesting. If there was one thing I liked, it was the fact that the main character is sort of like, I guess he's sort of like Asta from Black Clover, in that he doesn't have magic. He has to rely on, like, he just is a really good swordsman, and then the witch that he's with has magic. And basically the premise is that uh the setup is that like he was supposed to kill the witch, but after spending like 15 years being her guardian or however long, maybe it probably wasn't that long, it was probably just like a few years, but he can't bring himself to do it. He thinks it's fucked up because like he doesn't want to kill somebody. So instead, the witch and the witch's main assistant all run away together to go and try to find a way to like stop witches from turning evil. And I thought it was like, it wasn't amazing or groundbreaking, but I don't feel like it should have. I don't feel like it needed to be those things to get a good run. It felt like there was a lot of stuff there that was really interesting, and I felt like uh, once we started getting to see the other uh, witch groups, like because basically each group, there's always a witch, and then there's the witch's guardian, and the guardian usually the typical thing is that the guardian doesn't use magic. They can sort of like use the witch's magic in a way. I guess by being like really connected. I don't really remember a lot. It's kind of been a minute since this ended, so I don't remember a lot of details. But I thought it was really interesting, and I felt like there was some really cool stuff there. And it was the main character couldn't always get out of stuff by brute forcing. It actually felt like the main character had to be clever and quick on their feet to get out of things. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was good, but it's over. But if you want something short to read, I guess again, I can recommend that. I don't know. I thought it was fun. Next up, interspecies reviewers. So this one's probably not as well known. Maybe it's basically just hentai. It's like erotic, but it's basically hentai. It's hentai with a plot. And all I'm really gonna say about this one is they're slowly putting in more and more of a plot, and I kind of don't care about the plot. I've dropped this one actually. I stopped reading it. I started reading it like in like March. I'm not even sure when it came out. I know it came out last year, like, but I don't remember exactly when. But I don't know. Like, I would recommend reading the first like 20 to 25 chapters, and then after that, just like whatever, if you like it, you can keep reading it. But it just kind of starts to become a little bland after a while, at least in my opinion. Not really a story that could hold a lot of weight, honestly. I don't know. It's whatever. If you like erotic comedy, you probably will like that one. Next up, we have Magu-chan, God of Destruction, which is basically about a girl who lives in like a bumfuck nowhere town who finds like this little orb or whatever that contains I don't remember how to Magu Menueku or something like that. I don't remember his name. Basically, a god of destruction got sealed in a little orb, and then she accidentally breaks him out. But now he's like really tiny and cute. And she keeps him as a pet, and basically it's just a gag manga where they get into a bunch of shenanigans. I think it's really funny. I like it a lot. I like the characters. There's another one called Naputaku, I think is the name. And then he's sort of like the rival comic relief. He's the Kuwabara to Magu's Yusuke, I guess you could say. There's also a third one whose name I can't remember at all. But she kind of like she worked with the Holy Knights that defeated all the gods of like destruction or whatever the fuck they're called. Because, well, I won't say why, because I thought it was a pretty funny twist thing, whatever. But I don't know. Also weirdly attractive, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. I'd fuck her. Don't you sit there and judge me. Anyway, very funny. It really entertaining. It's also pretty wholesome, and overall just a good manga. So I recommend giving it a read if you like slice of life with like a with a lot of comedy mixed in, as well as like a lot of supernatural stuff mixed in. I would recommend Magu-chan very much. Anyway, what the fuck? I'm looking at my list and some of these aren't in alphabetical order. This is bullshit. Anyway, how dare I? I'm just gonna read down the list in the order it's in anyway. Phantom Seer. Phantom Seer, basically the main character is this girl who can see ghosts, and she meets this dude who can exorcise ghosts, and basically, they team up to kill evil ghosts. Pretty simple stuff. I would say it's okay. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if it ended up alongside Bone Collection and Guardian of the Witch, in that I'm not sure I expect it to make it super far. But it's decently entertaining. The art's really good. I think it's written and drawn, like the artist and the writer are the same person. So, but whoever's doing the art, like, it's really fucking good, I think. The story is mildly interesting, but it isn't groundbreaking. It's enjoyable. I don't know. If you're looking for something fairly recent that you want to like catch up on and like, you know, read chapter to chapter, week to week, and you like supernatural, a little bit of horror. I guess it's technically horror in the sense that like it's technically in a magazine meant for like young teens, or at least that's the target audience. So I guess it's horror, but I wouldn't say it's scary. I don't know. It's horror-ish. It has horror elements. Horror. I can't say that word. Horror elements. But it's probably like a 6 out of 10, I'd say. So I don't know. Maybe check it out. See if you like it, I guess. If you like ghosts and yokai and shit like that. Next we have Jujutsu Kaisen, which is so everyone, when Black Clover came out, you know, everyone compared it to Naruto because it had a lot of similarities. It had a loud, shouty main character who everyone is like, haha, you suck, but he's like, I'm gonna be the best. And they compared it to Naruto a lot. And also, you know, Asta has a demon in him, Naruto had the nine-tailed fox, blah blah blah. So Jujutsu Kaisen has a sort of similar premise in that the main character is just a dude, and then there's this really powerful demon, because the whole thing is that they kill demon monster things. They call them something, I can't think of it right now for some reason, but we'll just call them monsters, I guess. Anyway, so there was a really powerful monster who was so powerful that he got sealed, like sort of killed, sealed away. Basically, he had 4 hands, and each of his fingers are scattered around, and if one were to collect all the fingers, they could resurrect him, basically. Anyway, the main character ends up eating one of the fingers, which gives him, well, it doesn't really give him powers, at first at least. He doesn't have any abilities. It basically, he meets a dude who's a jujutsu sorcerer and accidentally gets wrapped up in fighting one of these monsters. And then eats the finger, and then Sakuna, I think is his name, takes over the main character's body and kills the monster, and then the jujutsu sorcerer guy is trying to fight him and loses, but then the character that is essentially the Kakashi character, and when I say that, I mean he has white hair and wears a blindfold, and it's kind of like, and is the sensei tutor teacher character, and is also carefree and snarky. So very comparable to Kakashi. Let's not beat around the bush. Also OP as fuck. Like OP to the point where like the bad guys are like, we have to get rid of him if we want to win. Like he's priority numero uno. And there are multiple times where shit goes down, and it's like, and it's directly stated that like, oh, if this guy was here, this would not be an issue, but because he's busy somewhere else, we have to deal with this. it's honest. I think it's heavily implied even, or directly, maybe even directly stated that like the only time anyone other than him has to deal with anything is because he's busy doing something more important. So someone else has to do it. But if he could just like, if they just had like 100 of him, he could probably just do it all himself. Anyway, Jujutsu Kaisen is very good, like really good, I say. Um, it's action, not really any romance. I mean, there is like a sort of romance subplot, but it's not in the forefront at all. But the characters are all really good and well written. The evil guy inside the main character is probably the best incarnation of evil guy inside main character I've ever seen, because every single one of evil guy's actions and motivations makes sense and has like a reason to it. So whenever he does something, you can go, oh, that's why he did this, or that's why he didn't do this. Like, I don't know, it's done really well. Um, yeah, I mean, fucking the fight scenes are great. The characters are all great. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say. It's just really good. I definitely recommend this one. Go read it. Probably a 9 out of 10. All right, moving on. Kingdom. So Kingdom is a story about a guy in ancient China who wants to become a great general and his journey to reach that. And it is really good. This one I'd give I kind of go back and forth with this one if it's a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, because there are certain parts of the story that drag, but then there are also certain parts of the story where I'm like, fuck, I gotta find out what happens next. I gotta go. But it's interesting, and I've never read a manga before that is just like a war manga. Like he goes to war again and again and again. Like we see him through different like battles out on the battlefield as he climbs his way up. Oops. And it's not like, and like we see it like every major event we see. I don't know, I've never read a manga that like is about war and shows the war to this degree. Like typically when there's a war in a manga, like in Berserk, it really only showed like a handful of battles, and usually the part where it was just like two armies clashing was like skimmed over. But like that is exactly what Kingdom is. Like it is just the skirmishes between, you know, the armies and then doing battle and yada yada yada. It's pretty good. Like I said, it's kind of niche, I would say. But I mean, I guess if you like shonen and you either like fictional historic fiction, or you just like war stuff, you'll probably like this. It has two main characters that are girls that I think are done really well, in the sense that like they stand up on their own, and like in ways where it's like, oh, they would still be successful if they were not with, well, they wouldn't be successful in like an emotional sense. Like the main character is definitely one of those where like he changes the people around him instead of necessarily being changed himself. Like he goes through growth and stuff, but like he's definitely the people that has like a big effect on people around him. But like they are capable enough, the two girls are capable enough that they could like accomplish really great things um without the main character, at least if we're assuming that, like, you know, they had been able to get over their emotional baggage on their own. Basically they aren't held up by the main character, and there are parts where like the main character is fucked and the only reason he gets out of it is because of them. And I feel like a lot of manga, you don't really see a lot of female characters in the main group that are like especially capable. So that's cool. Um, but I will also say that there are some female characters where it's like, oh, this is exactly what I've expected of a typical like shonen female character that's just like, oh, big boobs and wants to fuck everyone they see, yada yada. Um, and like those characters, those women still have some cool things about them, but overall they feel a lot more like bland and typical for like what you'd expect out of a shonen. But the two lead girls, uh, standing next to the main character, stand out a lot, and they have some really cool stuff. And you know, they don't they don't need the main character there to save their asses or hold their hand constantly. And again, there are plenty of times where they save the main character's ass to the point where it's like, oh yeah, if she hadn't been here, like he'd be dead on multiple occasions. And like I said, I don't feel like you really get that out of a lot of shonen. So that's something I think that's worth it. That if if that's something you want, if you're just like, give me a shonen with good at least a couple good female characters, uh, Kyokai and Ten are good characters. I think at least like they're not like, you know, it's not like they're like big feminist uh, stuff, but like there's definitely things there about like women on the battlefield and how like women are just as capable as men, if not more so in some cases. And it's and in different ways. Like Ten is a tactician, so Ten is really fucking smart, and Ten is able to outplay like men in their like, you know, people who have been tacticians for decades. She's able to outplay them despite the fact that where I'm at in the story, I think she's like 19, 20. I think she's like 14. No, she's not probably not that. I think she's like 12 or 13 at the start. Anyway, my point is, uh, it's good, and it has probably out of everything I'm reading, I'd argue it has like the strongest like female characters, at least if just with those two, just because so much shonen is like guys. It's just like guys up front, and usually the women are just like the love interests, and I don't know. Like a lot of these do have women who are very capable, but to only to a degree where like they get their thing here and there, but like Kingdom is like one of the only shonen I can think of off the top of my head where like the woman is like constantly like these girls are like constantly kicking ass. Which for some of you probably don't give a shit, but I feel like it was worth mentioning because I know there are some people out there that would probably like to see that. So yeah, Kingdom's good. If you, it's definitely, I think in my opinion it's kind of niche though, so I wouldn't expect it to be for everybody. But I would recommend it. Yeah. Moving on. Momo the Blood Taker. So this one I dropped. I don't feel like I feel like I can explain why pretty quickly. Lolly Vampire. So the main character is on the police force, and there are like murders and stuff happening, and people are like, oh, what, it's almost like a vampire the way that he's killing people. Turns out, you know, it is a vampire, and turns out the main character like had been searching for this two-faced vampire that killed his wife, and then he finds him, but then tries to kill the two-faced vampire, almost dies, gets saved by a lolly vampire girl. You know, 500-year-old lolly type bullshit. She's probably older than that, but I don't care. Anyway, then she like makes him like a half vampire, and then the yada yada. That's about it as far as I'll go, I guess. I read a good bit of this because I tried to write off the lolly vampire part because there were some interesting things going on, but I don't know. It just kind of got to a point where it feels like they're setting up a romance between the main character and the lolly vampire, and that really started putting me off. And also it just kind of started petering off just in general. Like they're it started feeling like the main character was only in like half the chapters, if that were coming out. And like that's fine, I guess, but it was still pretty early on, and I feel like you need to have a pretty established story before you get to that. I don't know. It just overall just kind of really started dipping, and so the things I didn't like about it were no longer excusable because the things I did like about it were not as prevalent. Yeah, I don't know. It's still ongoing, I assume, as far as I know. I wouldn't really recommend it personally, but if you are one of those types, you might like this. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Necromance. Necromance is, if on premise alone, a very interesting idea. So basically, we start off with this group of heroes who killed the Demon King, and there's a funeral happening for one of the heroes, and he was kind of like the main hero, I guess, and he like sacrificed himself to kill the Demon King, and then boom, he gets brought back as a zombie, and it's holy shit. So then they go on a quest to figure out why he came back as a zombie, but then we also start to find out that the Demon King's not actually dead, blah blah blah. But the thing that I thought was interesting about this is that because they had already beaten the Demon King, they're like, they're really fucking powerful at the start, which I thought was an interesting way to start it, because they're basically equivalent to like if you beat a Final Fantasy game and then you started the next Final Fantasy game with your team that you beat the first Final Fantasy game with at the level that they had been at when they beat that. It's kind of interesting. Like there's a lot of fights that are basically just like gag fights where like one of the characters just one shots everyone because they're OP as shit. But of course, after a while, where we're at now in the story, a bunch of really powerful people who work for the Demon King have showed up, so there's not really any of those types of fights really anymore. It does have action, but honestly, it's a lot more. The main focus is the romance between the main character and the party's cleric, priest, whatever you want to call her. And the whole thing is that because he's a zombie, if he touches her, he gets burned by like radiant magic because she's such a high level priest. She's like the high priestess of the church. So that's really the main focus, is their romance, and I would argue everything else is just there as like extra stuff. It's not great. It has some chapters here and there that are pretty entertaining, but there are also plenty of chapters that are pretty boring. So this is one of those where I'd recommend, like, if you just want something to kind of read on the side, maybe you read like 1 or 2 chapters a day until you get caught up, and then just as like an extra thing to read. It's probably not going to be like your new favorite, but it could be entertaining at the very least. I don't know, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. Yeah. Moving on to an anime that needs no introduction. One Piece. Manga that needs no introduction. One Piece. I'm not really gonna say much about One Piece. You know One Piece. If you're watching this video and you don't know One Piece, I'd be very impressed. All I'm gonna say is that Wano Arc is good, real good. We're getting close to the end of Wano Arc. It feels like, well, by close I mean by One Piece standards, so we probably still have like 4 months left. But it's good. Still a masterpiece. That's all there really is to say. I just figured I'd throw it in because it's my favorite manga. But I don't really have I don't really think there's anything I can say that anyone else hasn't already said 100 times. So yeah, good. One Punch Man. I've been with One Punch Man since the anime came out. I started reading the manga as soon as the first season ended. I'm caught up on it, at least the English release. The Monster Hunter, the Monster Association arc, whatever you want to call it. There was a while there where I felt like it was kind of dipping down quite a bit. Like it started to really bog down, but this last little bit's been pretty entertaining. And it's interesting because like I honestly had expected, because if you've seen One Punch Man, you know the whole thing is that he beats anyone in one punch, and he shows up to save the day at the very last second, yada yada. But the interesting thing about this is that I was expecting Saitama to show up like 10 chapters ago, if not more, and he still hasn't shown up. And honestly, I don't even think we've seen him in I don't think he's made an appearance of any kind in 2 or 3 chapters. But it's been really good, honestly. The last chapter was sort of just whatever, nothing happened. Or at least the most recent chapter in English that came out in English as of me recording this, nothing really happened, so it was kind of a disappointment. But it's been pretty entertaining. Seeing Tornado, what the fuck is her actual name? I don't remember. Seeing Tornado's whole thing, letting her get the spotlight has been pretty fun. Getting to know more about her. And I am looking forward to where it goes from here. And I don't think it needs to be said, but holy fuck, the dude doing the artwork for the One Punch Man is fucking just, oh my god, it's so good. But I think everyone knows One Punch Man, so I don't have much to say about that. Moving on, Seraph of the End. So I don't know if this one, I don't really know how popular Seraph of the End is, but I started reading it because there was an anime that my friend showed me called Legend of Legendary Heroes, and I really liked it. And I finished it, and it doesn't go all the way to the end of the story, and the only thing they have is light novels, and as far as I know, the light novels haven't been officially done in English, and they have. Please link them to me. I would like to find them, because I looked up some fan fucking translations, and they weren't too great. I don't really like light novels much, but I really liked this anime, and I would really like to see where it goes. So if you do know of an official English translation, please let me know. I need it. I just need them to fucking make an anime of the rest. Anyway, I don't really think Legend of Legendary Heroes was very popular, but Seraph of the End I think is at least a little more popular, but it's by the same person, same author. This one is a manga though, so I am caught up on the manga, but I started reading it because I found out it was the same person. I'm always kind of back and forth on this manga, because there's a lot of really interesting stuff that Seraph of the End does, but there's also a lot of bits where I just find it hard to really get invested or to care too much. And it's really weird because it's one of those that I'm still reading it and I'm overall enjoying it, but I feel like it peaked 50 chapters in, at least for me. I don't know. It's also one of those where we're at the end, at least I think we're at the end, but it feels like we've been at the end for so long now, and I don't know, I don't really know how to explain it. But if you know, you know, I guess. I don't know if I'd really recommend it unless you're just really into any manga about vampires. It's pretty gay, I guess. If you, I mean, it's not actually I don't think any of the characters are openly LGBT, but it's gay in that way that two bros who are totally gay for each other, and this wasn't a fucking shonen manga in Shonen Jump, they might maybe they would actually just be gay for each other. But I mean, I guess if you like those sorts of shonen where like the characters are so fucking gay for each other that you know there's millions of fanfics on 803 and whatever the fuck of these two. If you're into that sort of thing, you'll probably like it, at least for that. But since it does have vampires, there are also a couple lolly vampires. Well, there's one main one. But I don't know. I guess at least with her, she's an interesting enough character. I let it kind of. I'm willing to let it slide with her. I don't know. Maybe that's hypocritical. Yeah. I don't know. I can't decide if I want to recommend this or not. Honestly, I like it, but I feel like there's enough wrong with it where I don't feel like. I feel like it kind of falls into a lot of different niches. So like check it out, but I'm not gonna make any promises. Anyway, moving on to Mori King. Mori King is about a rhinoceros beetle, I think, that becomes like basically a dude with horns and like the beetle back on his back, and he's in a battle to become Mori King, king of the forest, and with other bugs. It's a gag manga that just makes fun of like a lot of typical shonen stuff, a lot of typical shonen tropes. Pretty funny, I think. I usually get at least one good laugh any given chapter. That was my bones popping. I don't really have much to say. If you like insects and you like poking fun at typical shonen tropes, you'll probably like Mori King. It's a good time, I think, at least. I don't know. I wasn't really into gag manga before, but I feel like I found a handful of gag manga that really got me this year, so that's been kind of fun, and this is one of them. Anyway, I don't really have much to say. It's just a silly manga. It's funny. That's really all there is to it, honestly. Moving on, Atelier of Witch Hat. I don't remember the Japanese name. I was gonna try to say it, but I don't remember it because I feel like most people know it by that. Anyway, doesn't matter. This is an interesting story. It's really good. It has really good art. It is basically about a girl. So in this world, at least as far as most people are concerned, you're either born a witch or you're either a witch or not at birth. So, but this girl really wants to be a witch, even though she knows she can't be one because she wasn't born a witch, yada yada. But basically, she goes to a festival or something, and when she's a kid, and some dude shows up, and he's like, "Hey, here's a pen and a book, I think," and he's like, "You can use these to become a witch one day." And she's practicing one day, and she copies a spell. It's because the spells are like basically it's like a glyph you draw, and she manages to get it right, and it turns her mom and like her whole house. It like crystallizes her mom, and that's a big oh shit moment. But then this one dude shows up. What the fuck is his name? It starts with an O, or does it? Keyfree. It does not start with an O. His name's Keyfree. He's a witch, and he happens to be there at the time, and he takes in Coco. That's her name, right? the main character, and makes her his apprentice, and then it's basically her. Basically, you know, that's the revelation of you don't have to be born a witch. That's just what they tell people, because they don't. Because there was a big thing at one point where magic was a lot more available, and then like the witches broke off into two types. There's the brim hats and the other hat. I don't remember. There's basically, for some reason, they're distinguished by the type of hat they wear. Anyway, but there's the bad witches and the good witches. But there's a lot of stuff where it's like, are the bad witches actually the bad witches, or actually or are the good witches the bad ones because they're oppressing people with magic and they're limiting who's allowed to use it and blah blah blah. And the main character sort of caught between both worlds, because the bad witches want basically see her as like their savior, and they're trying to build her up to be like this really powerful witch that'll like make magic more available again, because there's a lot of strict rules to magic nowadays, and there's a lot of things you're not allowed to do, and you know the quote bad witches are like, that's fucked up, like you should be able to use magic however it works, because if we use magic to its fullest extent, like we could fix most of the problems in the world. But then the good witches, quote unquote good witches, are like, yeah, but if you let everyone do whatever they want with magic, they can also do some really fucked up shit with it, yada yada. You know, it's a really interesting story. It's really good art. Keyfree's hot, so that's a plus at least, if nothing else. I don't know, I would recommend it, definitely. That's a definite recommendation. It does a really good job at balancing like the serious stuff with like really lighthearted and wholesome stuff. Good read. Next up, Toradora. So Toradora is probably my second favorite manga that I've ever read. So Toradora is basically, there's this dude, Ryuji, who is kind of, he's not a delinquent, but he has the face of a delinquent, I guess, is how he's always described. Basically, he looks like the kind of guy who would cause trouble, even though he's actually like he's like a good student and everything. And he meets another girl who, what's she called, like the palm top tiger. He meets a girl named Taiga, and she's like the typical tsundere. So for those of you who don't know, I really like tsunderes, and Taiga is essentially probably the best tsundere that I've ever seen, because not only because she's exactly how a tsundere I think should be done, like she's kind of like the model tsundere. So she starts off like, you know, typical tsundere, but over the course of the story she opens up more and more, and you know, she actually has like depth to her character, and there's a lot of character growth over the story. But essentially Toradora is just a romance between Ryuji and Taiga, and their whole thing about, you know, falling in love and yada yada, and we all know they're going to get together from the first chapter on, like, no, let's not kid ourselves. But it is not about the destination, it is about the journey, and the journey is it is so good. The only thing is that the manga, despite the light novel coming out like a decade ago, the manga's still not finished. For some reason the manga is still like very slowly coming out. Like, I think they're putting out like a volume a year or something like that. So there's still like 2 or 3 volumes left of the manga, so I had to finish. So I would probably recommend watching the anime. There are differences between I think there are some differences between the anime and the manga. I know there are differences between the anime and the light novel. Basically what I did was I got caught up in the manga, and I watched the rest of it on the anime, and then I also read the rest of it in the light novel. But fuck, it is good. It is really good. I screamed, I cried, I cheered, which is saying a lot if you know me. It's amazing. I don't really have much else to say. Read it, watch it. I don't really care what you do, but it's good. Do it. Go now. I mean, you probably already have, because this is like a really popular one, and I'm just kind of a fucking loser for it taking me this long to find it. But if you haven't, fucking you go do it. Absolutely, 100%. My highest recommendation off this, because not only is it not particularly long, but it is also fucking amazing. Moving on to Undead Unluck. So Undead Unluck is a really interesting story, and it has probably one of the most interesting power systems to come out recently. So the main character is a girl, a well-written girl, since I kind of made that a thing when I was talking about Kingdom. And she has this thing where anyone that she touches will have something unlucky happen to them, and the more she cares about them, the worse it is, to the point where like they will die just from touching her if she cares about them too much. She meets this other dude who also is undead, and he can't die, and basically his plan at the get-go is like that he wants to make her fall in love with him, so that she'll, because the more she cares about him, the bigger the like unluck that happens to him will be, and he wants to make her fall in love with him and become so enamored with him that she causes an event so unlucky that even being, him being unkillable, it kills him regardless. Like, it's that powerful. And that's sort of how it starts, and it goes off real crazy, and a lot of different shit happens, and there's it's a really good story, actually. I totally recommend this one as well. Like, this is probably, if you don't want Toradora because you're not into like romance slice of life type stuff, and you want something action related, like, this is 100% what you want to go for. It has, and honestly, I'd kind of argue it has everything. It's got comedy, it's got romance, it's got good action scenes, it's got a really interesting power system. I'm not going to explain it because I think it's kind of fun to kind of learn it for yourself. But basically, I guess everyone's power is like on blank, so it's like undead, unluck. I won't mention any others because part of the fun is kind of, at least for the first few fights. Well, no, even later on, sometimes the fun of a fight, it also has to do with trying to figure out what someone's power is. So yeah, I won't mention any others, but it's really good. It has a very unique art style, and a really good art style, I think. Fun characters, really well written, thought out story. It's got a lot going for it. Definitely recommend. And it's only, what is it, like 50 something chapters in right now? It's not too long yet, so now is a good time to get caught up and start reading. So yeah, Undead Unluck. Recommend. Last on our list, one that needs no introduction whatsoever, Watamote. Or no matter how I look at it, it's you guys' fault that I'm not popular. So I watched the anime for this years ago, back when it first came out. But I decided to sit down a few months ago and start catching up with the manga. And oh my god, like, fuck, like it's kind of funny that these last three are all like bangers, because I feel it feels like I'm just be like, this one's really good, this one's really good. I was not because I remember liking the anime a lot, but I was not expecting to like when I start reading it and to like it as much as I did. But like, fuck, this is a really good manga, and watching Tomoko's character growth and the way that like watching her go through high school, and just like the way she grows as a person and like the wacky shit she gets up to, like I could not put it down. Like I was constantly like, I gotta know what happens next. I gotta know what happens next. I gotta read the next chapter. I gotta read the next chapter. I was constantly just like fucking bam 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 bam. Okay, so I said One Piece is my favorite, and I said Toradora is my second favorite. I'm not 100% sure on this, um, but Watamote may be my third favorite manga ever. Um, I'm not gonna say that's for sure, but it's really fucking good if you like slice of life. So I said earlier that I usually can't get into slice of life when it's about kids because typical teenage stuff isn't like the typical teenage stuff they write about, and most slice of life is really interesting. But maybe it's just because I'm like a fucking introvert and a hermit, and I don't like getting out and yada yada, and I'm antisocial. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a fucking freak that I really, really just like and can vibe with Tomoko. But one thing I also like about Tomoko is she's totally just like an asshole, like undeniably. Like she does a lot of stuff where it's just like she's the well, bad guy. She's the bad guy, but I don't know if bad guy is the right term to use, because typically if you think of manga and you think of bad guy, you think of a villain. But I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff where like she'll do something and she'll think she's in the right, but the joke is like that she thinks she's clever, or that she's got the moral high ground, when in actuality she just like unknowingly embarrassed herself and proved that she's just kind of a bitch. But I don't know, watching her go through high school has been a fucking wild ride, and I was so fucking sad when I got caught up and realized, like, I was happy that there was more to come, but it was also just fucking devastating to be like, oh, I have to wait for more. But no, Watamote is really good. If you watched the anime way back when and you liked it, I would totally recommend reading the manga. It is great. The anime covers like only a really small portion of the manga that's out. So I totally 100% recommend. Amazing, great read. So anyway, that's the end of my list. I don't know if that was even really a good review list. It was kind of just, I don't know. I just kind of I did a thing last year where I just talked about the stuff I had read last year. I kind of want to make that a yearly thing where it's just like, here's the stuff I've been reading. I don't know. I threw in a lot of stuff that like I had been reading already. I don't know if I'll keep doing that, because I feel like that just adds extra fluff to it. So we'll see. It depends on how much I'm reading next year. And because if the end of next year comes around and I'm not really reading a lot of new stuff, then I may as well keep all the stuff on that I've been reading for a while. But I think if I get the time to really find a lot of new manga to check out next year, I'll probably stick solely to like the new stuff. We'll see. But anyway, hopefully some of you got like at least one or two manga recommendations that you're considering checking out. Or maybe I mentioned like one of the ones like Berserk or Toradora or something that's older, and maybe you're already caught up or have gotten all the way through it. Maybe you want to go back again. I don't know. Regardless, I hope it was enjoyable in some way or form, or at the very least it was able to put somebody to sleep. But thanks for sitting with me through this. Good riddance to 2020, I say. What a fucked up year. And yeah, I will see you next year. And have a good day, good night, whatever it is for you. And I will see you in the next video. Mwah.